What's up, girlfriends? Welcome to Girlfriend Therapy podcast, guys. I don't remember which episode this is. I think it is episode 30. So I actually wanted to share or save this particular episode for a very special, just a very special, what is the word? Conversation for a very special conversation. And so today, my guest is myself, and I wanted to share with you guys. Let me get myself together here. I don't know why my cord is all wrapped up, but I wanted to share with you guys. I actually hit a really cool milestone. And so I wanted to share it with you guys. I wanted to sit in front of the camera under the Girlfriend Therapy platform, drink one of my favorite drinks, and share with you guys an exciting milestone that I just hit. So let me pour, and we'll get this conversation going. But happy Girlfriend Therapy, happy life, happy milestones. So this week's conversation, like I said, I wanted to share just a little bit about myself, not necessarily about Girlfriend Therapy, but about me, Kwanza. So this week, I actually hit a really incredible milestone. I am ABD as of yesterday. If you guys don't know what that means, if you're working on a PhD program, it gets to the point where you've finished all of your coursework and now you're just down to your dissertation. And that is where I am. I'm so incredibly excited. It has been a journey and a half. And so, it's been a journey and a half. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my PhD program, how I got in the program, why I wanted to pursue my PhD, what my experience has been like thus far in the program, and what I'm planning to do on my dissertation. So if I can kind of keep that straight in my head, those are kind of the four parts that I want to share. It should be easy because it kind of flows, right? So first part is, why did I want to get into a PhD program? I'll start there. So firstly, I always knew that I wanted to get a PhD. I was actually hoping to get my PhD before I turned 50. You guys know I turned 50 in October. Maybe you don't know, but I turned 50 last year in October. And I was, kind of working on my PhD, but I always thought that I would have my PhD before I turned 50. I definitely thought that I would have my PhD before I embraced my grades, but I decided to embrace my grades. That's a whole other story. But I decided to embrace my grades. I decided to, just kind of move into this next phase of my life. And like I said, I kind of always knew I wanted to go into a PhD program. And so, but I never really knew what I wanted to do. So that's an important part of it. My academic background is in communication. So you guys can't see, but above my head, I have my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and then is there a frame up there? No, I keep threatening to put a frame up there for my PhD, but I'll put it up there eventually. But nonetheless, my bachelor's and my master's degrees are in communications. And so I always thought that I would kind of do something in communications, but it really didn't make sense to have a PhD in communications. I just didn't know what that would look like and what that would feel like. You guys may also see one of these plaques up here. I have my ministry license, so I am an ordained minister. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'll do my PhD in theology. Girlfriend Therapy is a faith-based platform. So I thought maybe I would do my PhD in theology. But I kind of didn't want to do that either. I didn't want it to be that specific. So always knew that I wanted a PhD, just wasn't sure what I was going to get the PhD in. So rewind, fast forward, must have been early 2018. Yeah, early 2018. I was, my husband and I were, what were we doing? Actually, sometime early in 2018, I got an email in. I keep getting this story mixed up with another story, but I think I ended up getting an email in my inbox. And it was from a university. It was Faulkner University. They were accepting applicants for their PhD program. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the program was called a Great Books program. And it was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I, kind of looked at the email, and I don't know where the email came. It was, incredibly random. I don't know how it found its way into my inbox, but it was there, and I looked at it. And like I said, it was on the Great Books program. And so as I was looking at it and trying to figure out, okay, with the Great Books, what is that? Because as you guys can imagine, I have a bachelor's in science and a master's in science. So both of those are in the science field. So this particular program was in liberal arts, and I had not done anything within the liberal arts, probably since high school. So looking at the program and realized that it was Faulkner University's PhD program. It was a PhD in philosophy, but you can get it in particular areas. You can get it in philosophy, you could get it in general humanities, you could get it in, or philosophy, humanities, literature, history, and theology. Yeah. And so as I'm looking at the program and I'm looking at how it's designed, it had like all of these components. And it was like, oh, this is exciting because, you know, it had the theology piece, it had the, I guess, the philosophy piece, just these different pieces that I was interested in. The literature piece, because you guys know I'm a writer as well. Excuse me. So I had the literature piece. So I had all these different components that I was interested in. And so I was like, man, this is interesting. Let me find out more. So of course, you know, schedule some time to talk with the, I guess, the registrar, whatever. Ended up having to do 3 things to get into the program. I had to, or not, yeah, I had to do, I guess, essentially 3 things to get into the program. I had to get letters of recommendations from at least 3 PhDs. I had to get, I had to do my, what was it? Oh gosh, it was an MAT. It was some GMAT or some test I had to take. I can't even remember. I can't believe that I don't remember. I actually think my book is somewhere on my shelf, but I had to actually take a test. I wish it was right near me. And it's probably looking right at me. I just can't see it. Yeah, it's around here somewhere. Anyway, I had to take a test to be able to get into the program. And I had to pass the test, obviously. And then I had to, what else did I have to do? I think it's over there. So I had to get 3 recommendations. I had to pass the test, and I had to, submit the application as well as an essay. So yeah, those were the 3 parts that I had to do to actually get into the program. So the recommendations, I reached out to my spiritual mentor, Dr. Leonard Armstead, and he was one of my recommendations. It is so funny because I was like pinging Dr. Armstead for so many different things. And I call him pastor because he is my spiritual leader or my spiritual mentor. And so I call him, Pastor Armstead, but he is a doctor, PhD Armstead as well. So he was one of my recommendations. And then I had 2 guys that I worked with who were PhDs as well. So interesting enough, all of my recommendations were Black men, which was very, very cool for me. I don't know why, but it's very, very cool for me. And so it was Pastor Dr. Armstead. It was Dr. Williams. I'm not going to put their first names out just because I don't think I should. And then it was Dr. Ferguson. So these were the 3 Black men, PhDs, who did my letter of recommendations for me to get into my program. And Dr. Ferguson and Dr. Williams were both in the technical field. And Dr. Armstead had his PhD in theology. And so, the 3 of them were incredible champions for me, continue to be, mentors for me throughout the program. In fact, I kind of reach out to them periodically just to let them know how I'm doing, how things are going in the program. And so, get everything. Now, one interesting thing is the test piece of it. So I had to take this test, and I took the test. I take the test 3 times. I think I took I know I took it at least twice. I feel like I took it 3 times. I can't remember, but I feel like I took it 3 times. But I was so discouraged. I know the first time I took the test, I was incredibly excited. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pass it. Took the test, failed it, terribly bummed. The second time I had to go take the test, I was actually, I can remember Babe and I driving to the test center, and I'm looking out the window because I'm still not as confident, but I'm looking out the window and I'm just like, man, I really want to pass this test. Oh, and the interesting thing is I had to get everything submitted by, I think the due date was like early December or something like that. And they were making their, or maybe the due date was like end of October. They were making their decision early December or something like that. But I know that I was up against a timeline. So I had probably like, probably about 8 weeks time frame where I had to really get this, like pass this test. And so I failed it, then I had to wait to reschedule, then I failed it again, then I had to wait and reschedule. And I think the last time that I took it, it was kind of like, man, if I don't pass it this time, then I don't think that I'm going to be able to get everything in time for the selection to get into the program. And I just really wanted to get into the program at that time. And so, and I feel like my timing is off. I really do. I feel like my timing might be off. I wish I would have had like my transcript or something in front of me, but nonetheless, go take the test for the third time. Well, yeah, the third time that I'm going to take the test, I remember sitting in a car with Babe, and I'm just kind of like all this pressure, like my third time, I have this deadline, I have to pass in order to get into the program. So I just remember driving down the road with Babe, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm just kind of like, just talking to the Holy Spirit like I always do. And I was just kind of like, man, I really need to pass this test. And I remember just feeling kind of bummed and probably even kind of a little depressed. Like I can feel like my light was dim. And I remember just driving down the road and looking out the window and just hearing the Holy Spirit said that, you are the light of the earth. And I got a visual of what that looked like. And I had this very real vision of the world just lit up. And in my light kind of blinking, like it was in and out. And it was almost like this world view. And then there was like this United States view. And then it was like this piercing Maryland view. And then it was just like me. And there was this blinky light that was like in and out. And the Holy Spirit was saying that, just reminding me of the scriptures, the light pushes back darkness. I'm about to cry. Goodness, let me get a sip. All right, light pushes back darkness. And there was something in that moment where something in me just kind of shifted. And I knew that I had to do this. And I was going to be successful at it. So went in, took the test for the third time. And the interesting is they don't give you your results like while you're there, or do they? I can't remember, guys. No, I don't think they give you your results while you're there. So you have to wait to get an email. Yeah, you wait to get an email afterwards to let you know whether or not you pass. So I left there and I was kind of like, I think maybe. And so, get halfway home and I get my, checking my email. The email comes in and I pass. Just like, yes, pass the test. Super excited. Now I'm on track. I can get, everything else ready, submitted and all that stuff, and, ready for my PhD or ready to get into the program. So get into the program. I think my first class started maybe the top of the year. I feel like maybe the top of the year, I think my first class started. So I think I started my first class maybe in January 2019. I hate that I can't remember my dates, guys. In fact, let me see something, because I'm not in a hurry. But I'm going to see if I can't find because I usually keep oddly enough, at least keep a copy of my program on my phone. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Dude, just open. I don't know, open with something. No, what's that? Can you open with that? There we go. Yeah, so I took my first class. Let's see. Intro to Humane Letters. What was that, my first class? Nope. That was my first class. Yeah. Historical Investigations looks like it was my first class. Hold up, guys. 19. I don't know. It's hard for me to. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, scholarly inquiry. Oh gosh, scholarly inquiry and writing was the first class that I took, and I took that in the in February of 2019 is when I took that class. So get into the program, get accepted, take my first class in the winter of 2019. I guess that would be like their winter semester, I guess. I don't know. Or spring semester. I don't know what they call it. Nonetheless, get into the program, and immediately I feel overwhelmed and out of place. Now I feel overwhelmed and out of place because, like I said, this is a liberal arts great books program. And the great books is everything Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Socrates, Descartes, like all of these philosophers who I had heard of, but had never engaged in any of their writings at all. So all of this was incredibly new to me. And then on top of that, in my first class, I am literally the only Black woman in this class. I'm the only Black person in this class. I'm the only person of color in this class. So that was like the first class. I was just kind of like, ooh, like I felt incredibly out of place. I felt like, do I belong here? Like, am I in over my head? Like, what was I thinking? And I remember really feeling like I didn't belong there, and feeling like I was in over my head, feeling very much out of place. And so one of the first things I did was, I'm a huge proponent of if you can't find what you need, create it. And so I attempted to create like just like a support group for women working on their PhDs, Black women specifically working on their PhDs. And so at my job, I kind of shout out, there was like this alias for all Black people that work for this particular company or particular agency. And so I asked to send this email out through their alias to say, hey, trying to create a support group for women, women who are working on their PhDs, regardless of what you were getting it in, or regardless of what stage you were in, whatever. It was like, I just want to connect with some like-minded women who are working on their PhDs that can, encourage me. I can encourage them. We can kind of help each other on this path. It's the hardest thing in the world. Everybody that even responded was like, oh, congratulations, good luck, but I'm so busy, I don't have time. It was all that kind of thing. I was like, man. But I did get an opportunity, I think, to at least sit down and talk with at least two women who, they were kind of like, they're too busy to be a part of any kind of like support group, which was odd to me. But they were open to like meeting me for a coffee. And so I think on at least two occasions I met with two different women and kind of, heard their experience with regards to their programs. And because of the nature of work that I was doing, or the nature of the company that I was supporting, a lot of people were like in the technical field. So everybody was getting their PhD in some kind of technical space, which was really a lot different. And I later found that, my program was a lot different than everybody's program. So I kind of started off why I wanted to get a PhD, how I got into the program, and now I'm kind of giving my experience of being in the program. So wasn't able to connect with anybody, but at the same time, my daughter was finishing up her PhD, or working on her PhD. She was getting her PhD in psychology. I had a cousin who was working on her PhD, and she was finishing her PhD in psychology as well. I had a very dear friend who was working on her PhD, and she's working on her PhD in public policy. Had another friend who was working on her PhD. She was working on her PhD in technology. And then another friend who was looking to get into a program, but her program was a technology program as well. And so although I was surrounded by different women who were working on their PhDs, they were all working on them in areas that was just really, really different than mine. And I quickly realized that was different than mine because, one, mine is philosophy, and it's all about reading and interpretations and understanding and connecting, like, these philosophical theories through, the beginning of time, and connecting them to some of the same philosophical theories that we talk about today. So, for example, you talk about knowledge, like what is knowledge and how is it different from wisdom, and, all these different things. We talk about life. What is the meaning of life? So, philosophy is very ethereal, and it is very much, it's really all about thinking, interpreting, gathering your own understanding. And so it was just really different. And on top of that, like I said, we were learning and talking and reading philosophers and reading and stuff that it was very, very, very difficult for me to comprehend. Like, I would find myself having to read stuff 3 and 4 times because I just could not. It was just hard for me. Like, the words just would not make sense to me. And of course, that began to kind of impact my confidence a little bit. Not even a little bit, a lot of it. Like, it really just did a number on my confidence. I would find myself, I think that first semester, having to write a paper. And we start off like out the gate, you're writing 30-page papers, which you would think, okay, you're a writer. That should be easy. But the thing was, I was learning about these concepts and these philosophers in real time. I was expected to consume what it was that I was reading. Not only that, but I was expected to develop a philosophy behind it, like develop my own thinking behind it. At this point, I'm just trying to grasp it. But not only did I have to read it, I had to read it for comprehension and understanding. I had to read it for comprehension and understanding, and I had to grasp it, and I had to develop my own theories and thoughts and whatever behind it, and then be able to write and articulate it in a paper to present to a professor who is a PhD in philosophy. So it was very, very, very daunting. I would find myself, in fact, the first semester, I found myself like walking around my kitchen counter, like at 3:00 in the morning, and I was like in tears, and I'm just like, what in the world am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? What in the world? And it was very stressful, incredibly stressful. I found myself sitting like in my downstairs bathroom, which is like the kind of the guest bathroom or whatever, like public bathroom, like when people come visit. Really tiny bathroom. I would find myself in there, books stacked up, just sitting on the floor, trying to comprehend and write. These papers were like stressful. I think it would have been no more stressful if I had to write 1,000-page paper. Like, writing those 30-page papers were intense, and I would be just stressed out. Take a step back. One of the other things that, when I was talking to people who had PhDs, particularly women, the men not so much, but particularly the women that I got to talk to who had already finished their PhDs, there was women that was like, they had to go on antidepressants. There was a woman that, they were having like nervous breakdowns. They were having mental, emotional breakdowns. Like, they were on medication. Like, it was like this intense thing. And I'm like, I don't want that to be my experience. And so, I just found myself walking around, and I just really felt like I was in over my head. Very much felt like this is impossible. It was really, really a daunting time. One of the things I do remember, and I've taken this with me throughout the program, is in that first class, I remember I had Dr. Woods, who was the professor, instructor rather. And I remember him saying in one of the earlier classes, he said, okay, so as you think about your dissertation, and this was class 1. 4 years later, I'm preparing for my dissertation. So he says, as you're thinking about your dissertation, he said, I want you to think about you're at a table. Everybody's sitting around the table and everybody is talking about their life's work. He said, everybody's going and they're taking their turns and everybody's, presenting themselves. He said, now it's your turn. What are you talking about? And he's like, that's the thing that you want to focus on as you prepare for your dissertation. And he said, and as you go through each of these courses, keep in mind that thing and make sure that everything that you're learning, that you kind of continue to try to align it with that. It's like, okay. That was great advice, by the way. And I thought about it and continue to think about it often. And so every semester, you just like, I started off taking 1 class a semester. I wanted to pace myself, kind of get my footing, get into the program. Then eventually, I think probably after the 1.5 year mark, I started doing 2 classes a semester. And so now here we are, 4 years, 3.5 years, almost 4 years later, finishing my coursework. And so, what else throughout the program? Yeah, so finishing my coursework, here 3.5 years later. Of course, last year we had, or not last year, 2020. Yeah, geez. So 2020, the pandemic hit. And so I got my first C. So, and it was crazy because I got the C and my instructor was like, he said, well, you guys can, and it was really it was a stressful time in general. I mean, you had the pandemic, was just stressful. And so that particular semester, they allowed us to take actually, no, I had my first C before that. I think my second class or so, I ended up getting a C. And I was devastated because that class was so tough. In fact, I still have my transcript up. So let me see which class that was. But that class was so tough. Here we go. Yeah, that was my second class. And it was historical investigations, which thinking back on it, like, why would I get a C in that? But it was about history and it was just, I just couldn't comprehend. So I ended up getting a C in that class. So then now fast forward to 2020, first semester 2020, I ended up, the pandemic hit. It was pretty stressful. And I struggled a bit. So I ended up almost getting a second C, but fortunately, this particular class, because of the pandemic and a lot of people was going through, they allowed us to take a pass or fail as opposed to a letter grade. And I knew that I was on track to kind of BOLO. So I went for the pass or fail. So I ended up just getting a pass, as opposed to failing or as opposed to getting another C, which probably would have bumped me out of the program or at a minimum put me on probation. And so fortunately, I, got the pass and got out of that program or, avoided getting on academic probation. I realized that I am mostly a B student, fine with that. And this is probably my transcript as of, yeah, this was earlier this year. So this was in March, which was before my summer class and before this class. And I didn't even know if it had my other classes on there. So at that point I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A's and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 B's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So at that point I had 5 A's. Hold up. No, one. Hold up. One, two. I literally can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 B's. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 A's, 6 B's, and a C, and then I had my pass. So at that point, I think since then I've had another B, another A. Yeah, I don't know if that caught my grades from the end of that semester. Yeah, I think from then I had another B, another A, and in my class this semester. So nonetheless, I had my GPA is roughly, if I can find it. Yeah, my GPA is roughly a 3.3. And that's where I'm right now. Well, that's not where I am right now. That's where I was as of March 2022. It's probably not too much better than that, to be honest. But nonetheless, I think as the program went on, there was times where I felt a little more confident, and a lot of that depended upon the professor, I think. I've had some really great professors. I mean, some really great, encouraging professors. I know Professor or Dr. Sabir, who he was a math. Did I have him for math or science? I can't remember. But he was incredibly. One of his things that he did that I love is he would do like in a one-on-one with you at the end of the semester. So everybody's scheduled. He scheduled everybody one-on-one with him, and he just spoke life to me. He encouraged me so much. He said, I see you doing great things, like stay the course, stay encouraged, encouraged me so much. And I was like super duper, just incredibly grateful for that. I had an amazing professor. God, I can't remember nobody's name, Dr. Lindsay. And he was incredibly humble, so super humble and very, very supportive. Again, I think when I had Dr. Lindsay, my mom had passed, and he was so super duper. It was Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Young. They were so incredibly gracious to me during that time. They allowed me to take my time through my program. Of course, I had to finish all my assignments before the end of the semester, which put a lot more pressure on me. But they just kind of gave me grace to just work at my own pace, which was incredible. I mean, oh my gosh, incredibly, incredibly helpful. That probably was one of the most difficult semesters throughout the entire program, but their grace, the grace that they extended me was just amazing. And then I had Dr. Young for another semester, and he was like he prayed before each class, which was amazing. Before we got started, he would say a prayer. He would send out like encouraging words. What I probably forgot to mention, you guys are probably like, prayer. What I forgot to mention is that Faulkner University is a Christian college, is a little Christian college in Montgomery, Alabama. And yeah, so it's a small Christian college in Montgomery, Alabama, and it is a liberal arts. Well, I'm in a liberal arts program. I don't know that it's a liberal arts college per se. It probably is kind of a liberal arts program, but I'm in a liberal arts program for sure. So yeah, kind of trekking along, taking my classes. Professors were incredible, some more than others, but all of them were, pretty good professors. Like really, I think good-hearted, good-spirited. Hands down, like I can't even say who my favorite professor was, but as I kind of navigate through the program, so here we go. As I kind of navigated through the program, I was trying to figure out like, okay, what connects to, I wanted to do something that kind of sat within the wheelhouse of communications, because that frankly is like what I got my undergrad, my graduate degree in. It frankly is a field that I absolutely love. And I think it's a field that I've been called to. So I was incredibly excited about finding something that connects to that. And as I was kind of going through it, you can kind of see my books here. I have a quadrivium and a trivium. It's so nerdy. And I'm not even going to tell you. So basically with those, they talk about there are like 7 disciplines, right? And so in the trivium, those 3 are kind of like your, it's your rhetoric, it's your logic, and it is your grammar. So that's your trivium. The quadrivium is the other 4, which is in the sciences. So that's your math, it's your science, it's your, oh gosh, what is the other ones? I can't remember what the other ones are, but there's like, so my bellywig, if you will, or my wheelhouse sits within the trivium, which is your grammar, your logic, your rhetoric. And so when I came across, when I came across the trivium, interestingly enough, it was the rhetoric that stood out to me. And I remember in undergraduate school, you know, of course, my undergraduate degree is in communications with a minor in communications with a minor in with a minor in what? Oh gosh, advertising. Sorry, guys. So this is where I got twisted. It's communications with a major in public relations and a minor in advertising. So if I don't put that public relations part, it's like, what's that other piece? So yeah, communications, major in public relations, minor in advertising. My master's degree is a master's in business management with a major in public relations, minor in marketing. So yeah, so the public relations, marketing, advertising is my three-legged stool, if you will, under the area of communications. Because of course, communications, you can go into journalism, you can go into graphic design. There's a lot of different things that you can go into under the wheelhouse of communications, but mine is public relations, advertising, marketing. So I was familiar with the term rhetoric, but only as it pertained in that space. And so when you're talking about rhetoric as a communications officer or as a public relations person, it really is talking about like appealing to your emotions, your logic, your egos, your logos, your pathos, and all that stuff. So when I heard rhetoric, I was kind of like, hey, I remember that word. So of course, if you're in a program and you're reading all this stuff, and if Aristotle says rhetoric, and it's like, hey, I know rhetoric, right? So you're latching on and connecting to something that you know. And so that was refreshing. There's finally a word that I recognized. And not only did I recognize the word, but I understood the term and the terminology behind it. So that was exciting. So I latched on to rhetoric and remembering with what my professor said in that first semester. You're sitting around the table, people are talking, what are you talking about? So I'm talking about communications, but I'm talking about it specifically from the perspective of rhetoric. So rhetoric and communications, how that looks from a philosophical perspective. So understanding the philosophy behind, that really is what a philosophy degree is. Like you take these subjects that we're all familiar with. You can take language, something we're all familiar with in grammar school, right? But we talk about the philosophy behind it. We take something like math, and we're not talking about the, addition and subtractions of it all, but we're talking about the philosophy behind it. Like, how did math start, right? And fun fact, when I actually did the math course, and I did it with Dr. Sabir, I think he must have been my math. I think I talked with him in the math space, and I did it. I did my final paper on the words of numbers or something like that, or the messaging of numbers or something like that, but the communication of numbers. And so I took the communications piece, added it to the theory of math, and I talked about how we talk and how we communicate how we communicate in numbers. It was a really cool paper, and that was one of my favorite papers that I got to do throughout this whole program. I have to go back and revisit that because I thought it was really cool and it was a lot of fun. And he really enjoyed it as well, because it was like, to take that communications piece, because I've always said that I'm a words person. I'm not a numbers person. So I've never been really big on math. I mean, I can do math to pass it, but that's not my thing. That's not my jam. So I always say I'm a numbers person, I'm a words person, not a numbers person. So to be able to take that math class, which felt a little overwhelming at the time, and to be able to twist it and turn it into something that made sense to me, and looking at communications and how we communicate through numbers was really, really cool. So that was one of my favorite papers that I wrote throughout the program. One of the favorite ones that I wrote throughout the program. So I decided rhetoric, that would be my topic. And so now, where I'm rearing into my third year of the program, I'm pretty confident that rhetoric is the thing, and everything that I'm learning from that point on, I'm connecting it back to rhetoric. So, no matter what it is that I'm talking about, I'm going back to rhetoric. I'm some element of rhetorical discourse, or some element of rhetorical analysis or something in that space. I'm really kind of keeping it there, which was really cool. That was my jam. I figured it out. So now fast forward, I'm nearing the end of my program, and I go to, I have my, what we call a tutorial. So the tutorial is where you start really kind of shaping your program. So I'm gearing up for my tutorial, and I have my tutorial actually with Dr. Redwing, who is amazing. So he was a lot of fun to work with. And the tutorial is kind of independent. So you write it out yourself and you say, okay, I want to study rhetoric. I want to start building the foundation and going somewhere. So as I'm doing that, one of the things I had to do as well is start thinking about my dissertation. Like once you get into your dissertation phase, you have to identify or create your dissertation committee. And these had to be professors, who's worked with you, or professors who have some kind of knowledge in the area that you're going into. I think it had to be at least four positions on your dissertation committee. So it had to be the chair, which is the chair of my Great Books program. He had to be at least one of the people on there, or on the committee. I had to have a committee chair as well. So I had to have someone who, how did this work? Someone who was the chair of my program, I'm getting my PhD in humanities. So I had to have the chair of humanities as a part of my dissertation committee. And then I think my other two positions were kind of open. And so one of the other professors I selected, I think was, I'm trying to think, I think Dr. Woods is the chair of the humanities department. So I had him, I had Dr. Jewel, who is the chair of the program. So the chair of the program, the chair of the humanities program. And then I had two others that I could select from. So I was either picking Dr. Redwing, Dr. Woods, and Dr. Lindsay. I think Dr. Lindsay, I forget why he was on there. It had to be it's like three of the positions I think had to be focused, and I can't think of why. But then I had Dr. Redwing, who was the person who worked with me on my tutorial. So I feel like I'm all over the place because I looked at the time and now I feel like I have to rush through the story. But let me slow down and pace myself. So Dr. Redwing, I worked with him during my tutorial, and I was excited about him because he was the professor that I had the semester before, and we did he was like a literature professor. And I did a really cool paper on Ralph Ellison. And I think Dr. Redwing, like just my engagement with him was like really natural. It was really cool. He was really, I just really enjoyed talking with him. And he not only worked at my school, but he's a professor at another school. Like I said, my school is a small Christian college, but he's also a professor at a larger college in, I think he's UC Irvine or UC Berkeley or something like that. But he works at another, I think UC Irvine, but he works at a University of California in California. I think Irvine. But in any case, so he gets to work with different students outside of just the Christian space. And so working with him was a lot of fun because he was excited about tapping into other stuff outside of the Christian space. And he was excited about my study in rhetoric. So he was excited about that. And so when I was doing my tutorial, I asked if he would mind working with me on my tutorial. He agreed. It was a great project. And just kind of writing out the program and reading and meeting with him weekly was just like really incredible, or bi-weekly was really incredible. And so as I was preparing for my dissertation, he, kind of helped to prepare me, for the next steps, which was to get the committee together and helping me to kind of figure out where I wanted to go. And so I think initially I pinged him, Dr. Woods, Dr. Young. I think there was just the three of them to ask if they would be a part of my committee. And Dr. Young was the one that would pray with you before every semester or every class. And he was like really, really awesome as well. I was going to say something about Dr. Young that I totally forgot my train of thought on. Oh, Dr. Young was the one. So as I sent out my email to the 3 of them just to confirm and say, hey, I'm looking to kind of solidify my, or to build my dissertation committee. Would you be interested in being a part of it? And I kind of gave like a little synopsis of what I thought I was going to talk about, where I think I was going to go. And I just kind of talked about rhetoric. And Dr. Young was the one was like, yeah, that's great, but make sure you connect it to something. And I didn't understand what that meant. So I remember talking with Dr. Redwing, and I was like, yeah, he said connect. I'm not sure what that means. And he was like, yeah, I think he's just saying that you have to kind of have like rhetoric to what, I was like, okay. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. Now, fast forward, I'm about to land this plane, guys. So now fast forward, go finish my tutorial, go into my final semester, which is the semester I just finished, my final coursework, which is what I just finished yesterday. So I go into that and preparing to go into that rather, and I'm still even more focused like on my dissertation. So as I am thinking about rhetoric, I'm again randomly typing in rhetoric about something else, and this website pops up. This website pops up, and it is talking about this RSA conference. I had never heard of RSA in my life, but apparently they have a whole society for rhetoricians. And so it was called the Rhetorical Society of America. And I'm like, interesting. So I go to their website. Lo and behold, they were actually having their biannual conference here in Maryland, like a month and a half to 2 months after I came across this website. So immediately I'm like, this is destiny. This is I'm supposed to be there. Like, what are the odds that I come across it, and then that they're having their biannual, which means they do it every 2 years, conference here in Maryland. So immediately join the organization, immediately sign up for the conference. And I went to the conference, and I think I shared this a little bit I shared this a little bit somewhere. I don't remember where, but in preparing for the conference, I had a couple of things in mind. One was to learn more about the study of rhetoric, learn like where we are within a field and things like that. The second part about going to this conference is I wanted to network. And then the third piece was I wanted to get a little more fodder for my dissertation to help me start shaping my dissertation. And so I went to the conference, and I had this one thought in mind, and it's like, rhetoric is not a problem to be solved. It's a communications tool that need to be taught and understood, or something like that. That was all I had. And so go to this conference, and it was like a 3 or 4 day conference, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4-day conference. And I'm armed with, this is what I know. So before you go to the conference, you actually get to choose the different sessions that you want to sit in on. And I chose mostly, first of all, it was interesting looking at the courses that they were offering, because a lot of them were like social kind of, social justice type stuff that was on the agenda, which was really surprising to me. And I don't know why, but it was. But I decided that I didn't want to do any of that because it just felt too heavy. So I wanted to just focus on the study of rhetoric. So just, oh my God, so many interesting and incredible sessions I got to sit in on. One of them, this guy, he was talking about the art of listening, which I thought was phenomenal. But he talked about it from a perspective of rhetoric, which was really, really good. And that was the first session that I sat in on. I'm not going to get into all the details because, like I said, I feel like I've shared this, my experience at the RSA conference. I think I shared it on something, so I'm not going to get into all the details of that. But needless to say, like I said, I went to learn more about the field, get a little more clear on my dissertation, then also to network. From that session, I actually ended up having about 7 to 8 follow-up conversations, meetings, face-to-face Zoom meetings with different people that I met at the conference. And it was phenomenal. Like every conversation led to just more understanding, more knowledge, more wisdom, more excitement. I left that conference understanding that when Dr. Young was saying I need to land it somewhere or connect it to something, I understood exactly what he meant, which is that in this day and age, where rhetoric is in this social political space. And so I realized that I had to find something social, political to land rhetoric into. So it wasn't enough to just talk about it in theory, around, just very abstractly. Like I had to have it plug into something that I could be able to flush out and round it out into something, if that makes sense. So I left that conference trying to think about, okay, what is the thing that I want to connect it to? And I went through various iterations. So now I'm rounding out to the end. I went through various iterations of what that thing was. I was thinking about, I can't think of initially what I was thinking about. I think the art of listening, because I was so fascinated with that conversation. And in fact, that professor was one of the people that I had a coffee with after, or a virtual coffee with afterwards. And it was a phenomenal conversation. I thought about keeping it in the space of religion, because that was something that I'm really interested in. I thought about political, like if I did it in the space of politics, what would it be in? So one of the ideas that I kind of played around with was identity politics. Still not off the table, but it's something that's on the table. Another thing that I thought about is, looking at where we are, especially from a Christian perspective. So trying to put this Christian worldview on it. Wanted to talk about something like in that Christian space. So I'm talking about, considering, I can't even think, I think something like Christian rhetoric in the 21st century, or something, how to contend for the faith, something about contending for the faith, Christian rhetoric in the 21st century. I can't remember how I phrased all it together, but that's kind of like a topic that I'm playing around with. I think there was probably about 3 or 4 different ideas that I had and was kind of still flushing them out. So I think today, on day 1 of being ABD, which is all but dissertation, I am, in a space, in a position to really kind of narrow it down and consider what I want to do my dissertation on. And I'm incredibly excited, guys. Yesterday, when I submitted my final paper, I just took the biggest sigh of relief. Like, I had no idea that I was just so like tight. And when I finished that final paper, and I was just like, it was like I let out this huge gasp of air that I did not realize that I was just not breathing. And so now here I am, day 1, going into the writing of my dissertation and, preparing, to write. I am so incredibly proud of myself. I am so incredibly grateful to everybody from the very beginning of even entertaining this program to where I am today. As I feel like I am nearing that final turn before I cross over that finish line, God willing, and if the levees don't break, like my daddy say, I don't know what that means. God willing, if the levees don't break, I should be defending my dissertation, whatever that's going to be, in May of 2023, roundabout, or I should be graduating in May of 2023. So prayerfully finishing and defending my dissertation, prayerfully like in April of 2023. So that gives me, what is this? We're going into August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. That gives me 9 months. You can push out a baby in 9 months. I've done it twice. You can do a lot in 9 months. And so I am praying and I am trusting God that these next 9 months are going to be amazing. So if I can offer any bits of advice, if there's something, if you have desire to go and do your PhD or any other level of higher learning or anything, just do it. Like, go for it. You will be amazed. First of all, the time's going to pass anyway, right? But second of all, the lessons that you learn and the strength that is built and the confidence that is built up as a result of it is something that is unmatched. Can't pay for it. You can't get any other way. I always say people that, tell me that, or even when I hear people that got like a, honorary doctorates, I'm not impressed. Nobody who's worked for the PhD is ever impressed. We don't take it serious. It's not the same. We're not the same. So, because the work and the grit and the energy and the effort that you have to put into something like this it's not easy. It's not for the faint at heart. It is real live grit, real live digging deep, real live digging to the back of your cranium and bringing every thought that you could possibly bring, every idea that you could possibly bring. And it is so incredibly rewarding. And I am so absolutely grateful for this experience. So yeah, that's my conversation for you guys this week. Just been a wonderful experience. Again, go for it. That's all I can tell you, is just go for it. In fact, that's probably what I will name this video. Go for it. So thank you guys so much. I hope I didn't miss anything. I think I covered everything I wanted to do, why I wanted to go into the program, how I got into the program, what my experience was, where I am right now, where I'm going with my dissertation. I think I covered all of it in a very pretty nutshell. Probably got a little bit busy when I was talking about like my experience, because there were so many pieces and so much more I could have shared. But I think overall, all in all, it has been an incredible experience. What I find very interesting is I left Philadelphia and went into the military, and my basic training was at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And now I am back in Montgomery, Alabama, working on a PhD. All I can say is God is good and he does all things well. Blessings to you guys. And thank you so much for listening and joining me for my Girlfriend Therapy Year of Conversations. Blessings, guys.